Mike Smith. Hello, Mountain Mama. The Catholic Locked On podcast jinked the BYU Mormons yesterday. Well, you know, I believe that I told you Alabama would break a record for three-point shots in an NCAA tournament game. And
I knew today would be shitty.
Dismantle BYU. My prediction was 92-80. Was my final score prediction. The game ended 92-80. It didn't end 92-80, actually. BYU absolutely dismantled by Alabama. You said that BYU would be in position to win the game late.
Yeah, I thought they would be.
Do you want to apologize?
No,
do you want to?
I don't.
Do you want to take a moment to espouse my greatness? And
no, I don't.
I told you that BYU would get blown out.
Nobody saw 25 made.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Nobody saw that coming.
Doesn't matter. Alabama blew out BYU as I told you they would. I mean, you look at that's a 25-point win. That's it. That's a hell of a performance. Yes, they shot the lights out. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, I agree, Ryan Smith. Min Kim ain't paying a single MF and player after last night. Right? I mean, it's wild to me just how good Alabama was last night. And I think before we get to Alabama, I think what did BYU basketball prove this season? Because, yes, they got absolutely torched last night.
Yeah.
But I think BYU made a statement. You won 10 games in football. You go to the Sweet 16 in basketball. Now, I think we would all agree, and I saw on Twitter last night people saying we only get so far and then we can't compete. I don't know that I'm willing to go that far. I agree. You probably should have won the Big 12 championship in football. But there is no question this season for BYU basketball, this was a huge step forward. There's a lot to hang on to. I think KY Jelly after the game last night made a really good point.
KY Jelly, yeah.
Not that you're not even going to comment on
what am I supposed to say?
It's Friday and we're lubing it up on the Monty Show talking about BYU. Kevin Young after the game last night.
For me, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. Okay, and I know every one of you guys will too, especially those four seniors. I didn't say one word about the fact we were picked ninth in the Big 12. Okay, you're one of the last 16 teams standing in the whole country. You guys were picked ninth in the Big 12, and you guys just stayed at it and pounded the rock every single day. And then you had a magical run at the end. And this is like the 21st or something like that, 21st season for me of coaching. Okay, and I can honestly say this has been one of the funnest years of my life coaching. Because not every year that you have a real team. And then when a real team came together, you guys did something that a whole lot of people didn't think you guys could do. Okay? So for me, I'll be forever grateful for that. We'll be able to cherish this season for the rest of our lives, and we'll be a big family because of it. All right, let's go bring it in.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Right.
This was one of the best BYU basketball teams ever. I think it is almost inarguable. It's the most talented team ever. But you ran into an Alabama team that was simply better than you.
Mm-hmm.
They were more physical. Obviously, they beat BYU at BYU's game. I mean, you can't look at this box score. And I don't know how you look at this box score. And BYU was 6 of 30 from three. 6 of 30. Alabama was 25 of 51. They shot 49% from three. You beat BYU at their own game. And the fact that, again, BYU, what did I say the number for turnovers for BYU
12.
was? And they had 11 turnovers.
Yeah, I didn't think they played particularly poorly in terms of ball security. I actually, regardless of what Twitter a-hole wants to say about BYU, I actually didn't think they played particularly poorly defensively. I think Alabama just made shots, dude.
I think, first of all, Alabama made shots.
Yeah,
you're exactly
I mean,
right.
there were so many times where I was watching that game and I was like, bro, that's a great closeout, really good defensive rotation, made the shot. Like Sears just lighting you up. It is what it is, man. And I disagree with the sentiment that, hey, we get so far and then we can't compete. I do think for this team, yeah, you played a better team last night and they showed you why they were better.
Yeah.
Now I do think there is some consolation for BYU in the concept that you didn't play your best game last night, not even close. And you shot it horrifically. You employed this strategy early in the game, which I thought was fascinating, where you were trying to play high tempo, beat their defense down the floor, and get a ton of open looks. And initially, that was actually working for you. It took Alabama some time to kind of find their way in this game, I felt
8 minutes. It took Alabama 8 minutes.
Yeah.
To figure out that BYU was not looking for threes in the first half. And I think the biggest criticism I have of this game is you got to be you. This is the Sweet 16. You didn't get here by scoring 50 points in the paint on a nightly basis. You got here by dropping bombs on people. And I think BYU came into this game and tried to be something they were not. And it cost them dearly because they could not compete defensively. I think you saw the Alabama defense that I talked about. Alabama absolutely took them off the three-point line.
Yeah, all the people saying that Alabama can't play defense, you look silly today.
Yeah, I think that Alabama took BYU off the three-point line. BYU put up 50 points in the paint, no doubt about it. The officiating was terrible on both ends of the floor, so you can't say the officials cost them the game. I just think that when we look at Alabama, I think Alabama is a more physical team. I think Alabama is more well-rounded, and I just think BYU couldn't guard the three-point stripe last night. A lot of those three-point shots by Alabama were open looks. And ultimately, at the end of the day, BYU had a big season in basketball, and they needed to. And I think now you look at A.J. DeBansa coming in, and you look at the future of this club, I think it's nothing but bright and really exciting. That does not make you feel better about the fact that Alabama absolutely dominated BYU.
Yeah.
If you're a BYU fan,
this whole concept of BYU only gets so far and then can't compete, I just disagree with it. I do think that in this game, BYU is not 25 points short of Alabama. I think that BYU is probably 8 to 10 points short of Alabama, and on their best night, I think if BYU shoots 40% from three in that game, like they typically do, we're talking about a really tight game, and BYU held their own and did everything they could and just ran into a better team. That's what the narrative would be, because you would have lost by 8 points instead of 25. And that's the difference. In football, there's no excuses, dude. You guys dropped the ball. There's no question about it. Like, you were better than Kansas. You were better than several of the teams you faced down the stretch, and you didn't do what you were supposed to do. You should have been in the college football playoff if you just handled your business. So
Correct.
I don't want to hear about, hey, BYU gets so far and then, we can't compete. You just didn't execute in football, and that's why you didn't go to the college football playoff. In basketball, I kind of feel like after watching that game that Bama is just a better team than you are, but I don't think they're 25 points better. So I just think that any BYU fan today, ripping BYU or saying that somehow this wasn't a good season, or like, I just think you lack perspective, bro. Like you made it to the Sweet 16 in year one, man. Like what does year 4 look like under Kevin Young? What does give the guy a couple of NIL cycles to really build a reputation for himself and really show like, hey, AJ came here. We went to the Elite 8 and improved on the last season. And imagine what it looks like if you come here. Like, you look around football and basketball, and that's the narrative you have to have at play to have success in NIL. You have to be able to say, well, hey, look what we just did. And then, project forward. If you join our program, what would it look like? That's where the most successful teams are, or that's how they're pitching kids and getting kids to close in NIL. So I don't want to do the whole thing that we always do with BYU fan, where it's like, oh man, everything's horrible and what a terrible season and Kevin Young sucks and Min Kim should have paid more people. Like, let's not do that.
It was a great season for BYU basketball.
Bro.
Yeah. The troubling thing is Alabama made 35 field goals in this game. Do you guys know how many field goals BYU made in this game? 33. And they got blown out by 25. So let me get this right. Alabama only made 2 more field goals than you, but they beat you by 25. The reality is, Alabama showed us last night why I think they're going to the Final Four, because I do think they're going to beat Duke. I have that picked in my bracket. I have Duke and Alabama in my Elite Eight. I think Alabama's length is uniquely qualified to beat Duke. And as good as Cooper Flagg was, holy cow.
Yeah.
Was Cooper Flagg good? Caleb Love was very good. Cooper Flagg was just better. I am amazed. I am amazed at Cooper Flagg. I mean, he's 18 years old. He had a horrific ankle injury that looks like is not a factor. His defense is just as good as his offense. And his offense, that transition 3 at the top of the arc last night, like it's what he does. He rolls out of bed and hits transition 3s all of a sudden now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that might have been the best performance that I've seen in this tournament.
Yeah, I just think, early in the game, there was some talk on the broadcast about, how he was being too unselfish and he needed to kind of, get it going a little bit for himself. And I think what people don't quite understand about this guy is he doesn't have to feel rushed trying to score for himself or be an individual contributor. He can try to get his teammates going and see what they have to offer, because ultimately Proctor was proctoring last night. Ultimately, his teammates were putting out last night early in the game. So he didn't need to get going. And then when he did need to turn it on, he did turn it on, and then he just never turned it off and carries them to a victory. So
Duke scored 100 points last night.
Yeah, I mean, it made it look relatively casual, I must say. I mean, watching the game, like you look at Cooper Flagg's, some people call it situational awareness in basketball. It's just basketball IQ, understanding where you are on the floor, who you're playing with, what the opposition is trying to do to you, and executing. And he is just really, really, really good at that. Like, he understands, like, if you just watch him on a defensive possession, don't watch the ball, don't watch anyone else, just watch him. You can see him looking at the whole play and saying, yep, I know where they're going to go with this.
The alley-oop.
Yeah. I know where they're going to go with this, and I'm going to be there. And that's what elite players do. And it is very impressive to watch.
To have 35-5-5 is remarkable. He's only the second freshman ever to do that. And there's not enough praise for Cooper Flagg. He's the best player in the tournament. He's going to the NBA draft. It was just a virtuoso performance. And when you start looking at the way that Alabama and Duke match up, I think Alabama can handle Cooper Flagg. They have enough length. They have enough layers in their defense, and they'll keep him off the three-point line. And that's the real key. I think you can't let Cooper Flagg, like that left step 3 that he hit in the second half last night was absolutely a backbreaker. Like, that is such a frustrating 3-ball to give up, because you defended him well and you had one moment of a back step and he took advantage of you. Like, it just was, you scored 93 points and lost to Duke because Duke put up 100. If you're Arizona, that's got to piss you off something mighty. Like, can you getting that? Like, if you look at if you think the BYU numbers are strange, look at Caleb Love last night. 11 of 21 from the floor, 5 of 11 from 3, 8 of 9 from the stripe. He scores 35 points, 4 boards, and a dime piece, and they lose.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you explain that. And Vasar having what I thought was a really good game with 13 and 6. And, I'm amazed at how basketball, you can look at stats and basketball doesn't tell the story.
Right.
The kids dominating tells the story, whether it's Sears for Bama, Cooper Flagg, and Caleb Love. You just look at how good they're teenagers. That's the amazing, like they're teenagers and they're absolutely some of the best basketball players in the world.
Yeah.
And watching Cooper Flagg last night was nothing short of scintillating. I'd love to see him.
The quality is ridiculous.
The fundamentals, the mechanics, the ease with which they operate. It's amazing. I'd love to see Cooper Flagg go to the Final Four. I just think Alabama's a better team.
Well, I think Alabama, I don't disagree with that top to bottom. You look at their roster, there's no question they can beat Duke. I think that finally in Cooper Flagg's short time in college basketball, we're going to be able to have the opportunity to see him play in a game where the other team can actually beat his team. Like, I never felt like Arizona, or with all due respect, anyone they've played so far, it was in danger of beating them. I felt like they were, yes, it was a tight game, but you can kind of see, like in the Texas Tech game, right? You could see that Tech was in a great spot to come back. They were feeling it. Like you can see in these games, like BYU was as that game was unfolding, you were like, yeah, BYU just doesn't have the goods to come back and eat this 10-point lead.
They don't, but BYU lost belief. That Texas Tech game, you guys,
sensational.
That's one of the most
is made of.
That's one of the most entertaining games I've seen all year long.
So, when I watch Cooper Flagg and I think about the Alabama matchup, I think about, hey, this is the first opportunity we as observers are really going to potentially get to see Cooper Flagg behind in a game, looking to will his team to victory. And I think that's when truly special things can happen, because he is going to have to dominate. He is going to have to make those tougher shots. And I do think that it's honestly, it's where legacies are made in the tournament. I mean, you look at, Cooper Flagg and you look at his game and his quality, like I'd have no problem seeing him help his team come back against Alabama. I mean, the other thing I think also, before we get to the Tech game, for Alabama playing Duke, bro, you damn well better shoot the same way you shot against BYU.
Now, see, I disagree with that. I actually think that when I look at that matchup, and I look at Cooper Flagg versus Arizona or versus Alabama doesn't need to shoot 25 more threes. Alabama's just got to play stylistically their basketball, which is get up and down the floor, and if the three's there, take it. But they don't need to make 25 threes to win the game. That is why they're in the Elite Eight. They can play different styles. Nate Oates is such a good coach that you could see what their game plan was. Run and look for threes. And because I think they knew that BYU was going to have to play a different style than they were comfortable with, because Alabama was not going to allow BYU to hit those threes, and they're really good at defending the three-point strike. Alabama is very good at the arc. I think we saw that last night. I don't think they need to hit a bunch of threes. They need to run, because I don't believe that Duke is that team that can beat you in a 185-point game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they can. Duke, that's not what Duke needs. Duke needs half-court domination is what Duke needs to beat Alabama, in my opinion. And I think Alabama – is Alabama 25 points, or is Alabama superior to BYU? No. But that doesn't matter this time of year. You have one game to match up with. And so that's why I go to the Texas Tech Arkansas game.
Right.
And I look at Texas Tech, and that was the game of the tournament, in my opinion. The comeback, the performance that we saw from JT Toppin, Christian Anderson, I think saved them at times last night. It's what makes Texas Tech so good, is their ability to get production from different guys. You guys understand they played an overtime game and only used 7 dudes. Like, they know who they are. And I love that about Texas Tech. I love that JT Toppin continued to find ways to impact the game. He was in the middle of the fourth quarter. I was really worried he was done. He looked a little gassed, and Darian Williams was carrying the team, and then JT just steps right back up to end the fourth quarter, and in overtime, it just was a great performance. It saved the Big 12. Let's be very honest about that.
Yeah.
The Big 12 needed that win. They absolutely need Houston tonight. But what a performance by Texas Tech. What a performance by Arkansas. What a scintillating game. I think it's the most entertaining game of the tournament to date.
Yeah, and the crazy part is, I think part of what made it so entertaining is Texas Tech shot 25% from three in this game. I mean, you want to talk about not being able to make a 3-point shot. I mean, that is, you're talking about, Darian Williams being 2 of 10, like 20%, bro, individually. Like that's what can happen in the tournament. And that's why I say, whether we're looking at this game or the Duke Bama matchup or, whatever game you want to look at, there are trends and teams definitely have their colors and, there are certain pillars that they play the game with and stylistically, but dude, nobody's immune to having the 20% from three game and having to figure out how to will their way to victory. And that's why.
And only 11 free throws. Wait a minute. You shot 25% from three and you only had 11 free throw attempts. You made 9 of 11 and you still scored 85 points.
Yeah. Now, the good news is you took care of the basketball. Something fierce. Only 8 turnovers is really, really good, especially in an overtime game. So look, man, I think everyone is focused on the Calipari streak ending and, which
I'm here for.
100%. I think a lot of college basketball is here for it. I think just the same way BYU deserves credit, I think Coach Cal deserves credit. But, would have been easy to not even get there.
Do you sit here, and I'm sure you do, on a daily basis, you want to give Cal credit. And I understand that the burgundy blazer, that whole thing, that's a motif, bro. I was 4 for 4 last night picking games, and certain people won't give me credit for that. Right? When you dominate the way that I did, you don't need a bunch of three-pointers to dominate the way that I did. You don't need a bunch of free throws to dominate the way I did. I ran the fast break like a motherfucking track star last night. 4 for 4. This guy had Arkansas winning. I told you. Pew, pew!
I don't think I had Arkansas.
I don't think you did. But you had Arizona winning. You had BYU winning. You had Maryland winning. What did you get right last night?
Yeah, I'm not the a-hole that had Maryland over Florida.
Yeah, how about those guys this morning? My point is, I'm not only good looking.
Yeah, you had a good night, and I'm proud of you for that. That's great.
I'm not only dripping with absolute testosterone and machismo.
That's right, T.
We're 4 for 4. We're 4 for 4 last night. So you know.
Live?
I mean,
All right.
Nick's D says I was 4 for 4 as well, Monty.
D.
Stay hard.
I'm sure you were, Nick. You weren't here yesterday, but I'm sure you were 4 for 4. Houston has to beat Purdue in Indianapolis tonight. Am I the only one who thinks that is one of the great Penn State versus SMU and Boise thefts that we've ever seen? Is that Houston has to go to Indianapolis to play Purdue?
But Monty, they're playing in Lucas Oil, and it's come on.
It's absolutely theft. It is absolutely theft. Shout out to Lopes Van Gabe, who gives 10 Monty Show membership.
Nice.
Thank you, Gabe. Always good to see you. I mean, if you don't have a membership at this point.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know what you're doing. Nick Smirjizikov.
So Nick Smirnoff.
Same thing. Brigham Young, what happened? Brigham Young's been dead for quite a few years. I'm not sure that he had anything to do with the game last night. Nick D, Duke has the best defense in the country and the best offense. I would totally disagree with that. I don't believe that. I think Duke on a night in, night out basis has good offense. BYU's got the best offense in the country, statistically, efficiency wise. I think that you have to stop Cooper Flagg from doing something. You're never going to shut down a guy like Cooper Flagg across the board, but you can't allow him to score and dime out. You can't allow him to shoot transition threes. You can't do that. If you're going to allow him, like we saw last night, if you are going to backpedal beyond the three-point line in transition against Duke, they're going to torture you.
Yeah.
You've got to stop above the three-point line. Make him take a step, preferably to his right, because if you give him that crossover left, I mean, his fundamentals are so good that when he crossed, and it's the highlight everybody's playing, that sidestep left, the reason he's so good, it gives him rhythm and it puts the ball right in the shooting slot. You cannot allow him to rhythm left. You've got to force him to make a move to his right. In my opinion, he's good going either way, let's be honest. But I think when you look at Cooper Flagg, he's going to have his games. You cannot allow him to shoot the lights out, get to the rim, throw alley-oops, cross courts, break the paint, kick it to the corner. You can't allow him to do all of that.
I mean, I just think that, he's such a dynamic playmaker, man. I mean, the problem is he's such a threat, to score the basketball, that when you take that from him, he is going to go right back to, let's dime it to Proctor or whoever might be the open man based on the set. And again, I don't, I know we're talking a lot about Cooper Flagg today, but I just think that when you start to see him perform in the tournament and you start to see the quality just, oozing out of him, frankly, like I'm sitting here trying to evaluate this guy while I watch the game, and I'm like, all right, well, he can shoot it. He can shoot it on the move. He can shoot it off the dribble. He can shoot it in transition. He can go to his left. That's his preferred way, in my opinion, but he can also go right. He's got some work to do in his post game, in my opinion. He's got, I'd love to see him develop a little bit more baseline work or, a little bit more in that area. But when you really start to pick it apart, I mean, the strength of his game, like I said, is his IQ. Whether he has the ball or he doesn't have the ball, or he's playing defense in zone or man, the guy can look at the set and look at the guys on the floor and say, yep, we should move the ball this way, or my man's here. That means I can sag off there. Like, the guy just is seeing the things happen before they happen, which makes it really difficult to slow him down.
Yeah.
And I think that when you talk about, trying to limit him, when you talk about trying to make his life more difficult, that's the hard part with great players, is that not only does he have size, but he has athleticism and speed and
you
finish.
Have to take something away from him. Cooper Flagg is, I'll just keep saying, he's the best player in college basketball. I actually think he's a top 10 player in the world right now. You cannot allow Cooper Flagg to have it all. And Alabama is going to take something away from him. It's as simple as that. And my guess is they're going to take the three ball away from him.
Yeah.
They are going to make him pass the ball, and they're going to make other guys beat them. Alabama is going to force Cooper Flagg into the paint, which is fine because he's the guy's an unbelievable finisher. But they're going to make him give the ball up. And they're not. I think you are going to see Alabama do everything they can do to prevent him from making even a single three-pointer in this game. And that's what I would do. I would absolutely force Cooper Flagg to get into the paint and play against my length. And I think you look at the way that Alabama defended last night. They didn't have to defend the paint. They were happy to give you 2-pointers all night long. And why is that? Because stylistically, BYU doesn't win those games. That's a great game plan. Their defensive game plan last night. And again, I don't know shit from Shinola and Alabama
a
can't.
Terrible defensive team.
Alabama can't defend Jake and his new dog.
Yeah,
right?
They can't defend my fat ass and my new dog.
Can't do
it, dude. Not at all. Not even a little bit.
Because it's garbage.
Yet when you look at the way that Alabama defends, And you look at the numbers. Apparently they can defend, and apparently they can keep you off the 3-point line. One of the best 3-point shooting teams we've seen in some time shot 20% for 3 last night.
Ridiculous.
Because they can defend the 3-point line.
Were you surprised they shot so poorly?
No, because they did not. They had maybe 5 open looks all night long. Maybe. I was not surprised. I think I even said it last night. It's going to be a very long night for 3-point shooting at BYU, because Alabama is their best defensive attribute is you can't just blow by them. And I say that because they press you out to the line. You try to blow by their guys or get into the paint, and they play a layered defense. So they're always helping with at least 2 guys behind the ball. If you watch them last night, you'll see that their bigs and their guys lower on the block and in the paint are constantly shifting and constantly moving and aware of, hey, this guy, Richie Saunders, great example. This guy likes to get here or get there. But when you look at BYU shooting numbers, Dallin Hall was absolutely atrocious last night.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because they were not going to allow him to get into the paint and have those little easy teardrops he loves to hit. They knew what every BYU player liked to do, and they defended it well. And Alabama, I thought, handled the foul situation very well. They're going to have to do the exact same thing against
Duke.
That
drove me nuts last night with BYU. You had them, in foul trouble early in the second half, and then you committed a bunch of fouls and gave it right back. And, I felt like, again, yesterday on the show, I talked about there's going to be opportunities for BYU in this game. There are going to be moments where they have to recognize, hey, we're down in this game. We need to elongate this game for ourselves. We need to get ourselves extra possessions and extra opportunities to score. And what better way to do that than to, prove a point by getting to the line a lot. And they just simply, I don't feel like, obviously they were aware of it, but I don't feel like they recognized it to a point where they said, yep, we're either going to drive the paint and we're going to get that open look and make that, or we're going to get fouled, and then we're going to go to the line and we're going to play the free throw game. And I just didn't feel like, you talked earlier in the show about how like they lost belief. I agree with that. I feel like in the second half, there wasn't like this moment where BYU, because I think at one point early in the second half, BYU had it to 9 at one point. They got it under 10, and they had the free throw situation in their hand. And then from that point to the end of the game, Alabama just turned it up a notch, and that was pretty much it. And I just,
it was that long offensive rebound that Alabama got. They missed a 3, got a long offensive rebound. Nelson, they reversed the ball, and had a wide open look from 3 that they knocked down, and that's where the game ended, in my opinion. But here nor there, I think this Duke Alabama game, it probably is a 1 possession game when it's over. I'd be surprised if either one of these teams won by 6-8 points. I would be really surprised by that. I think that, again, if I'm Alabama, I'm trying to take the 3-point shot from Cooper Kupp, because if he's hitting threes, you're not beating Duke.
Cooper Flag.
I said Cooper Kupp. I knew I was going to do that this morning too. Cooper Flag. I would take the 3 ball away from Cooper Flag, and I would make Duke win the game inside the stripe.
The crazy thing too, is, and I agree with that, but Duke is -6.5.
Oh, as they should be. Duke's the best. Duke has got, what are they, 34-3 now? They've won 34 games. They should be favored in this game.
Yeah, 34-3.
Yep, they should be favored in this game. And you have the best player in college basketball playing his best ball. They are a 34-win team. You're going to favor Duke all day long in this game. I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 point win.
You
for
don't
one of
feel
these
like
two teams.
You don't see a blowout at all.
Not even. I don't know how that would happen in the way that Alabama runs the break. allows them to stay in games. They will win or lose. Alabama will win or lose this game with how early Duke gets into the bonus.
Right.
Because I think Duke is going to have to play inside the arc. You can't let guys like Knapel get high. You can't let you got to make like I thought Proctor last night was limited because they did not allow him to get on that, make a layup, make a three, kick the ball at Cooper Flagg, who hits a three. Like that's where Tyrese Proctor gets really dangerous.
Yes.
When he's not only scoring, but then he stirs the drink, right? Like Cooper Flagg you got to take the three ball away from him, and you got to make them play inside the arc. And I think it'll be a very close game.
Yeah.
I think it will be a very, very close game. And we'll have to see what happens. Nick D, Monty Cooper's another Kevin Durant, tall and athletic. Nobody's arguing that. Nobody's arguing it. The best way to beat Duke is to take away Knapel and Proctor. You're not taking guys away at this level. Defenses in college are not lockdown defenses usually. Unless you're Michigan State has the ability to really make your life difficult. Houston has the ability to really make your life difficult.
Yeah.
When you're as spread as Duke is, you're not locking Duke down. You have to take, I don't mean to be redundant. You have to take something away from them.
Yeah.
You have to make them stylistically change and hope that it's just uncomfortable enough that they don't find rhythm and flow.
And let's be honest too. I think to that point, like sometimes you do need a little bit of help. Like sometimes you need a team not to shoot crazy from three.
You need BYU to shoot 20% from three.
Yeah, like you need some of that sometimes going through the tournament, and that's why I say like we can sit here and diagnose this matchup all day long. The reality is it will, I agree, come down to a make or miss situation. With 5 minutes to go, you're either going to make the shot or you're going to miss it, and that's going to decide if you win the game. And I think that's the greatness of college basketball. But I also think at the same time, for teams like Alabama that really like to get out and run and push the pace and have a ton of possessions, and we gave you the stat yesterday. They on average defend 7 more possessions a game than your typical college basketball team. That could come back to get you against a team like Duke that's got a lot of ways to score. So I love the matchup. I love overall, zooming out a little bit, I love where the tournament's at. I think this has been a really solid tournament so far. This question of, hey, do we like the fact that it's all blue bloods and big boys and Power 4 teams? Yeah, I do, because the reality is Houston versus Purdue is going to be a scrimmage for Houston.
Against who?
Like Purdue and Boiler Down, and playing in a football stadium, which everyone is just fixated on, which I don't understand. Like, who cares? It's a basketball court. Dudes are going to shoot it and it's going to go in. Like, ultimately, I think the tournament's in a great place, and I hope for college basketball's sake that we are able to get Cooper Flagg against one of the better defensive teams in the tournament in the Final Four. And I hope we get that matchup. I would love to see him and Duke playing against one of the best defensive teams in the country and how they would go about that.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's really interesting to see how this all plays out. Stadium guy James, Alabama's peaking at the right time. They looked impressive. They did. Duke is going to run Alabama off that 3-point line. And I know that people don't watch Alabama basketball. Alabama doesn't rely on the 3 to win games. That's a team that usually takes 20-something threes a game, 20 low to mid threes a game. They win games when they shoot more free throws than they shoot 3-pointers. So Alabama, I understand they took 50 ridiculous whatever amount of threes last night. Alabama's not a team that lives and dies on the 3 ball.
Yeah.
They can shoot it. But I would not expect Alabama to shoot 50 more threes.
Yeah, they chose to go about it that way against BYU because that's what the matchup dictated.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Norge, Bama's defense will turn Cooper Flagg into Sheldon Cooper. But Norge, you said that Alabama doesn't play defense.
Yeah, I thought Alabama didn't play defense, dude.
I'm just curious. What do you mean Alabama's defense? I thought they didn't. From what you told us the other day, Alabama doesn't even come over the half court line to play defense.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you mean. If you want to explain that, Car Wash Channel. I'm glad BYU lost. Well, I'm not glad BYU lost. I'm glad we got 3 really good games and a historic performance. It was fun to watch Alabama drop threes all over the place. I mean, that was a historic performance. So I'm not glad BYU lost. Nick D says, Jake, come on, pardon.
Yeah,
exactly.
my bad, dude. That was me slacking off. That's my bad.
At least be better.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see how does Texas Tech fare. Well, were you guys impressed with Texas Tech last night?